Hey, what's going on? Aaron Murray here with Snaps. No T-Bob tonight. He's at a birthday party or wedding. I don't know, some BS excuse. He just didn't want to watch week 0, I think, at the end of the day. J.D PicKell at On 3 is joining me tonight. He watches all the football. Great content. Make sure you go subscribe to him, On 3, all their stuff. They do tremendous stuff based out of Nashville, where there is a game going on right now. A little closer for some SEC fans. The Commodores up 21-14 at halftime versus Hawaii. We may touch a little bit about that, but we're going to touch the bigger games, Notre Dame versus Navy. USC's in the fourth quarter right now, but kind of a little bit scary at halftime. They seem to have things under control right now. And then JD and I will look ahead to some of our, I would say, top 5 matchups heading into week 1. Just a slight preview as we kind of move on from the appetizer and get ready for the main course next weekend. JD, man, appreciate you jumping on. I think your first time with us. I know I've been on with you guys before. Happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, man, glad to be on this show. Those are both literal and metaphorically big shoes to fill with T-Bob out. But I'm glad to be on here, man. I'm glad that we woke up and it was a real college football Saturday, not like a spring game Saturday, not like we're getting so close, it's media days. It's like, no, they got real ball being played. And excited to talk about it with you, man.
Well, you're doing it sober, because usually when T-Bob and I are doing a Saturday night show, one, if not both of us, are a little intoxicated. So it's the fans will be getting sober. I don't know if you've ever seen our Saturday night shows before, but T-Bob usually dresses up in some wild ass costume. Like sometimes he's like an elf or he's Gandalf. He has his big pipe. And so the problem is he goes from an LSU game to he does a LSU post game at a whiskey bar. So he's smoking cigars, drinking whiskey, and then he jumps on this show with me afterwards after drinking and smoking, cigars for 2 hours. And it's an absolute blast. We have a great time. This is going to be a little bit more facts, less craziness, but we're going to have some fun too along the way, and hopefully entertain you guys. So appreciate y'all tuning in. We're recording this on Saturday night, probably going to release this on Sunday morning. So hopefully USC doesn't blow their 49-21 lead and JD and I look like complete idiots as we talk good about the Trojans and most likely their offense. But we'll start with a game, JD, that has concluded. Notre Dame versus Navy earlier today, and all eyes were on the pretty boy, Sam Hartman, and what this offense was going to look like, regardless of the opponent. It's still week 1, and you and I both know this. Like, offenses take a little bit longer to get going than defenses. And to me, watching it, it looked like they're in midseason form, regardless of the opponent. Them going out there and doing it in a week 0 matchup, I was like, damn, like that's pretty promising.
And it was, if you had never seen Sam Hartman play at Wake Forest and you just told somebody, hey, this Notre Dame's quarterback, they're like, oh, 2-year starter for them. He's been in the system for a while. And he goes out and he's just like the epitome of efficient. He was 82% completion percentage. And Aaron, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. To me, it looked like he was super in rhythm with his receivers, like making the ad-lib throw to Jaden Greathouse, hitting Thomas in the back of the end zone where he comes out of his break, like stuff like that where you kind of think, okay, you've repped that quite a bit. There's some chemistry there to where you're not just rolling the ball out there during fall camp and figuring each other out. So if that's the base for Notre Dame going forward, if they're going to build upon that and they can be multiple, I mean, Audric Estime, it's a grown man getting downhill. If they can have the downhill run and then also be multiple in the pass game, there's going to be a lot of games now that Notre Dame is able to win. They weren't able to win last year just because of how dynamic they'll be. So I'm excited, man. It's Navy. It's week 0, so we're not going to overreact, but like, looks pretty good so far. Returns are pretty good so far in Sam Hartman.
Well, and I had the opportunity to cover Sam last year for a game, and he's a really good quarterback. So was there going to be some possible hiccups on the way of a transition to a brand new offense, especially when it's the slow mesh to now what they're running at Notre Dame? Yeah, there could be. It was near perfect, and I'll go to the offensive line first. The offensive line was great, man. They were running the ball effectively. And if you're able to run the ball, and that was another big question, like Logan Diggs moves on to LSU, what's this running back situation going to look like? And they got some grown-ass men there running the football, kind of that running back by committee 4 or 5 deep right now. But they're able to do that and run with that kind of effectiveness. And Sam Hartman was essentially able to show a comfort level in the offense because he had time. And the one thing I do worry about when you do face a better football team or a defense what are those habits? It's easy to take a 3-step drop or a 5-step drop when you know you're not going to get hit, when you don't got to move in the pocket, when you're having to react while also learning something new fundamentally. That's when those old habits or the fact that you haven't taken a lot of reps in that offense can kind of peek its nasty head out. So not saying they are, because I do think Sam Hartman's a good enough quarterback to play in any offense out there. I think the offensive line is going to continue to be a dominant force. Hopefully the running backs continue to do what they do, like the talent at the receiving position. But I will say this, when you talk about the timing, and it felt like they just rolled the ball out there. I tweeted about this earlier. Some of those like Okie routes, which is timing, man. It takes time to be able to trust, man, when I hit my 3rd step, I can just throw it out there, essentially pick a spot on the sideline at 12 yards in depth and just trust my receiver is going to be there. And he was hitting those, the 5-yard outs, the speed outs, and he wasn't thinking, man, he was throwing it before the guys were breaking. It's acting like those guys been working together for 2, 3, 4 years. So to me, that just shows how good of a quarterback is. He's able to elevate the play of the guys around him, the leadership, the quality of football quarterback he is. So I love that. Was impressed by the defense, obviously. You know, it's good and bad having to go against triple option. Good because you get camp to prepare for it, so you should be ready to go. Bad in the sense, JD, the fact that you did waste so much time preparing for this offense when you're not going to get to see it the rest of the year.
The curious thing to me going into this game is Notre Dame going to be able to be disciplined enough for 4 quarters to be able to commit to just to be real, just the boring offense that the triple option is. And I'm a triple option guy. I was a triple option quarterback in high school. If you're playing against the option, it is freaking annoying if you're an edge defender to have to, sit in the middle, or you're going to crash, you're going to make them pull it. And so credit to Notre Dame, especially early on. There was a couple plays in that first quarter, Aaron, where you're like, oh boy,
Yeah.
some of that tape came to life. It's not the scout team running this anymore. Now Navy's kind of getting downhill and creating some explosive runs, it looked like, and they were able to kind of hold their water, figure it out, and adjust, like Marcus Freeman talked about. So I was impressed that it was like, hey, this is what we got to do this week. It takes what it takes in week 0 to get a win in Ireland. So we found a way to get it done. And I think you kind of probably felt this too. At the end of the day, it felt like Notre Dame, as long as they didn't have some wild schematic error, was just going to be so athletically superior. No disrespect to Navy, but they got more Jimmys and Joes than what Navy was going to bring. And in the triple option offense, you're trying to take advantage of angles and things like that. And at a certain degree, when you're playing Notre Dame, those angles just aren't quite there like they might be against a team like Air Force or Army. So, all in all, pass the test, on to the next. And, a win's a win. No such thing as a bad win.
And now all of a sudden people are saying, okay, do they have a shot versus USC? Do they have a shot versus Ohio State? We'll get into this USC matchup right after this. But before we put Notre Dame to bed and move on, watching them today, because there's always the question of, does Notre Dame have the talent to compete for a national championship? Brian Kelly, who I think is a top 5 coach in America, got them there, got them to the playoffs, got them to a natty in 2012, but wasn't able to finish it because of that. There is a talent gap. Watching them today and knowing that Sam Hartman's a quarterback, probably the best quarterback they've had in quite some time, is he good enough to close that gap, to make them competitive versus Ohio State, versus USC, and make them a legitimate playoff contender when it's all said and done?
I believe he is. My big question is that receiver room when you roll the ball out there against a team like a Georgia. When you go one-on-one with the corner at Georgia, you got, Kamari Lassiter on the other side of you. I need you to be able to win a percentage of those one-on-ones. Not all of them, but right now with Notre Dame, I think the question mark is still too big for me. I like what they have on the offensive line. Joe Alt is going to be probably top 10 pick maybe in next year's draft. They got a lot of guys up front that can do some good things, and you got a quarterback that can close the gap for you, like you mentioned. But I worry about those guys on the outside when you get in the ring with a beast like a Georgia, like a Michigan, like an Ohio State.
Yeah, I agree. I just love Sam Hartman. So we'll see. All they got to do is win one of them, man. They go 11-1. I think they're in the playoffs at the end of the day, regardless of the fact that they're not going to be in a conference championship game, because it is a pretty damn good schedule. All right, let's move to USC and San Jose State. A little bit of a scary first half, but the good thing for USC fans, you have the next coming of Reggie Bush, and he can get paid so he can actually keep his damn Heisman once he does win a Heisman at some point. The freshman stud receiver, Zachariah Branch, catching the ball, kickoff return for a touchdown, just another weapon for this offense. And before we get to the negativity of the defense and bashing it or not bashing it, well, whatever we want to say, this offense is elite. This is going to be an offense that can score with anyone in the country. Caleb Williams making miraculous plays look easy left and right. Fourth down doesn't matter. Just his ability to hit his back step and rip seam routes over and over again this game, it's effortless. I don't know what you believe of him, but I've told T-Bob this. I think he's the best quarterback we've seen in the past decade. Just an absolute stud, the ultimate confidence, and you throw the receivers around him and that talent. Was there any concern as you watched this offense tonight in their first go?
Not so much as an X and O standpoint. I mean, like you said, the snap is going past Caleb Williams. He's picking it up and throwing it 76 yards and it's a touchdown. Mm-hmm. So, life is good when it comes down to the Jimmys and Joes. Aaron, my concern watching the USC offense, when things didn't go their way, I couldn't help but notice the Caleb Williams body language. Saw a lot of palms up, saw a lot of rolling of the eyes. And I get it's week 0 at San Jose State. They shouldn't even be on the field with you if you're talking about what Vegas says. But I was like, hey, man, it's 14-21 right now. I need you to kind of set the tempo here for us because, San Jose State, it's not going to get a whole lot easier than where we're at right now. So that was a little bit of an eyebrow raiser to me. It's week 0. He's a competitor. He wants to fire on all cylinders at all times. He has enormously high standards for himself. But that was kind of a thing. I'm like, if we got Notre Dame on the other side of the field and it's the fourth quarter, I don't want my quarterback saying, hey, what are you doing to his tight end or whatever else is going on there. So I don't pretend to have inside information there or what's going on in Caleb Williams' head. Didn't like the way that looked, Aaron. I wasn't a fan of that personally.
No, I wasn't either. And I remember one play, it was a sack. I think it was at the end of halftime. He gets sacked right by the 3-yard line. He kind of rolls off the field, kind of like, what the F is going on? You're like, I know this offense better than anyone else on that team. You've been in it for 3 years. There is a level of expectation that I want guys to do something, and there are new faces. You do have a freshman receiver playing a lot. You have a top transfer receiver coming from Arizona. They're going to have hiccups because it's their first game. There's going to be some miscommunications. You have to kind of roll with it and understand that, hey, man, I got to go, wait to the sideline and then go talk with that guy to make sure that him and I are kind of seeing eye to eye. I agree with that. I think the one thing that jumped off to me, I felt like at times in the first half, the offensive line was not as good as they were last year. And it's still the first year, but a couple times you saw miscommunication where San Jose State has a defensive tackle that doesn't get touched. Center goes one direction, D tackle's running, and all of a sudden Caleb's having to obviously beat Caleb, which he's great at doing. But I don't want to put him in a situation versus Oregon or Washington or Notre Dame where you're getting a bunch of watch out blocks, and he's gonna have to go be Caleb week in and week out, which he can do that, but they gotta get a little bit more secure up front. I think they got the talent up there. First game, you're still working out some of the communication with the offensive line. But overall, from top to bottom, you got the quarterback. You have elite receivers. Once again, Branch is an absolute stud. That freshman is only going to get more and more confidence as the season goes along. So, offense ain't the question. It's looks like it's still the defense, man. Alex Grinch, you got all these guys coming in, and at times you saw okay, wow, I saw some better tackling. Oh, I saw some improvement. And then you saw some massive plays given up as well to a team that you are significantly superior than when it comes to talent. Did they get better? Is it just week 1? Are we already overreacting, or is this same old, same old?
I think to a degree, the talent is so much better than it was a year ago based on who they got through the portal. Bear Alexander was just abusing some of those guys on the offensive line for San Jose State, just noticeably knocking them back 2-3 yards, whether he got back there or not for a sack. But when it comes to the talent right now, I think it is going to take a second for it to mesh and for us to get on the same page. And there's an element of this too, where USC's defense is kind of an easy punchline for people on Twitter, right? It's easy to say, oh, USC's defense, this, that, and you kind of dismiss it. Chevin Cordero was balling. Dude's a 6-year player now. Has played a lot of games, and he He was dealing. So I think there's also an element of like, yeah, USC's probably figuring it out, caught their stride in the second half, knock on wood. But that's a good quarterback they're playing against. I mean, it's not Bo Nix and it's not Cam Rising, but I mean that's a good quarterback they're playing against. That's tough to draw in week 1 or week 0 rather.
Yeah, I covered in my previous job with CBS. I had the opportunity to actually cover San Jose State a bunch because we had a big relationship with covering the Mountain West, and it was just so funny. I mean, the last time I covered them, Nick Nash was the starting quarterback. He was kind of battling back and forth, and he was the athletic quarterback. He was the one that was obviously the better runner. And then now watching him tonight, I mean, literally the last time I saw Nick Nash, I think it's 2 years ago, maybe 3, he was a quarterback. And then tonight he's making that one-handed juggling catch. He's going, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns now. They just scored another touchdown. It's currently 56-28. Chevan Cordero's 20-33, 3 touchdowns, 178. They have another 154 yards on the ground as well. So I agree with you, Jay. Like the talent is better. So now it goes to Alex Grinch. Like,
yes,
you've improved the talent through the portal, through recruiting. So then what's now the problem? Well, then it's Alex Grinch. I mean, his ass is on the chopping block. So I don't know if you make a move at some point during the season. I also don't know right now if it is just hey man, we are talented, but we're still kind of working out the communications of what this defense is going to look like. You got some time, man. Like, you look at their schedule the next 4 or 5 weeks: Nevada, Stanford, Arizona State, at Colorado. We'll see what Colorado looks like offensively, but that's going to be interesting. Arizona. I mean, to me, you don't face a for sure fire home run offense until October 14th when you play Notre Dame. I mean, it's like they got time to make some improvements. Like, I don't think they're going to be stressed and worried about losing the next 5 weeks. So you're hoping that the defense can figure it out by then. But if they do keep performing the way they do tonight, say they're the same thing come Arizona and they're giving up 28 points to Arizona, what does that change your mentality of what this team will be in the Pac-12 and as they get ready for Notre Dame?
And I think also, to your point, like with the first half of that schedule kind of being the ramp up, like it has to be a ramp up and not just we're going to play this team that we're better than and we'll beat them by however many and we'll walk in, it'll be great. Like it's in charge of, the guys that are leaders in that locker room to say, okay, the back half of the schedule, I don't know if y'all checked, gauntlet. We got Notre Dame, we got Oregon, we got Utah. Like we better be ready to roll here for this last 5-6 game stretch. Because if we don't take this first half seriously as a true like progress period for us, we will not accomplish our goals. And so for USC, I mean, just like you said, when it comes to the talent, it's no longer a matter of do we have the guys. You're saying, okay, Alex Grinch, are we doing the things in practice? Are we doing the things schematically to be set up for success? They missed over 150 tackles last year, Aaron. And like you're just not doing the right things from getting a lined up standpoint. You're not doing the right things from a tackling and practice standpoint. Like that doesn't just happen because you don't have the guys. So I think, like you said, Alex Grinch, like that heat's turning up a little bit more in LA right now.
No, it's getting hot. And a lot of it was, I mean, there was mixed tackles tonight and you can kind of chalk that up to first game too, but there were some just wide open receivers, man, some explosive plays and give San Jose State credit. For those who don't watch San Jose State or watch the Mountain West, like you said, man, that's the quarterback heading in was, I think, preseason player of the year for that conference. Like that is a good team with a good quarterback, a quarterback that knows that offense. So let's not just, say that they're playing a bunch of scrubs either. So let's I'll give them a couple weeks, man, but I'm panicking just a little bit, a little bit if I'm a USC fan.
On the clock
like you said, that back schedule: Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, Oregon, and UCLA. 5 of their last 6 games of the season, they better figure out on the defense side of the football. So that's the first 2 big games, man. Week 0. A little bit of a teaser, a little bit of an appetizer. We got some football. It was great. Just get that palate wet and get ready for Thursday night to Monday Night Football. So JD and I are going to kind of break down our top 5 games that we're looking forward to most this weekend. And I would say probably the top headline, JD, is the Sunday night game, which I thought you did a great job with your analogy the other day with talking about Mason Smith. And I watched, I was like, man, it's 100% correct, the way you broke it down. So for those who haven't seen it, make sure you go watch JD's breakdown of how it just is fucking stupid what the NCAA is doing essentially. But a little drama added to the game with star defensive tackle Mason Smith not playing in it. What does that change your mentality as we head into this massive Sunday night football game?
I think it's more so like a loss of what he could have been in that game. I mean, he's
Yep.
6'6", 315. Like he could have been at his best, maybe a game wrecker. Maybe he puts Florida State into like more third and sevens, or maybe more behind the sticks, that kind of thing. But I mean, they'll still be solid in that defensive line. Like Mekhi Wingo is going to be a guy for them.
Yep.
I believe Jacoby and Guillory is going to step up behind him. But I mean, my real question is, if this becomes a situation where Florida State can score some points, can Jane Daniels and company, can they answer? Like, I mean, we saw last year they just kind of figured out what they wanted to do in the first half. In the second half, it was like, okay, now we'll kind of do our thing. And it was in this game last year where they messed around for the first two quarters and took it all the way down to the end of regulation, and really should have been playing for overtime. Obviously, a very different team LSU fans feel from that game to this coming season and what they learned in the second half of last year. But I mean, a lot of eyeballs on Jaden Daniels, and a lot of eyeballs on how much they can improve that offense from a vertical standpoint. And I'm excited to see it, man. I think that's the question, because Jordan Travis and company, I mean, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, they're just playing above the rim out there. So I think they're going to
Jaheim
score some
Bell at
points.
tight end.
Kyle Morlock, like 6'9".
Yeah.
They're like the Monstars out there, dude.
The thing that worries me, like I look at FSU and you kind of look from top to bottom on both sides of the football. You're like, all right, you got the quarterback, you got the running back, you got the receivers, the tight end, offensive line's back, the defense is back. Like there really isn't like this glaring, like, man, like this is where we can really expose FSU. Like there's certain positions that obviously aren't as good, but like there isn't like this massive, like, oh God, we're in trouble because of this. Where I think you do look at LSU a little bit, and I think they got talent at DB. Like there's not like there's a bunch of walk-on guys that have never played SEC football before that their eyes are going to be huge come that first game and they're going to look like a deer in a headlight. Like they got dudes, some experience, maybe not as talented as what LSU's had in the past at the defensive back position, but it is a weakness. And like you just brought up, and I kind of feel like up all the guys, you're going against a quarterback who was red hot to finish last season. A good offense line that's going to give him time, a tight end and Jaheim Bell that can move around and create matchups that you're going to have to communicate with, and then 3 or 4 deep, really talented, lengthy receivers that can stretch the ball vertically down the field. It's like I am now worried if you can't put consistent pressure on Jordan Travis, who's also athletic, so you can't just rush the hell out of him. Can those guys in the back end hold up? I think it's going to be a shootout, man. This is going to be fireworks because I do think Jaden and that offense with Malik and a really talented offensive line. I mean, that offensive line, you're hearing nothing but great things about how they've performed in fall camp. Good stable of running backs, Taylor at tight end. Like they're going to get theirs. Like they're going to score points. And I had the opportunity to cover LSU in the spring game and seeing Jaden's progression as a passer. It's like night and day from where he was last year, even at the end of the season, to where he is now heading into the season. So they're going to score. I think FSU is going to score. It's going to come down to who has the ball last, and cliche as it is, who protects the ball. What crazy turnover can swing the game late in the game is going to be the big difference. But I just think it's going to be hilarious. Like I would love to watch. I might do this at some point. Watch last year's game for how ugly and sloppy it was right before, and then watch that one, and it's going to be night and day because it is going to look so professional and good, two of the best teams in America when it's all said and done. Are you leaning any way or the other right now? Too early in the week, still need some more time?
Yeah, we'll pick it on our show to like kind of lock it in, man. I'm leaning LSU a little bit right now. Like the team speed that they have, Brian Kelly's gonna have them ready to play. And my big question for Florida State, like you said, it feels as though there's no glaring weakness across that roster. My big question is how have they handled the last couple of months with everyone saying they're a playoff team, they're maybe a team that's going to win the ACC, and like this is a team that they've got a lot of guys that are experienced and a lot of leaders in that locker room, but they've never had this kind of buzz in the Mike Norvell era around a Florida State team. Like last year we were talking about, is Mike Norvell going to make it to Halloween? And now we're like, are they a college football playoff team? And so when that spotlight gets a little bit hotter, do you kind of put the blinders on and use that as motivation and find a way to lock in? Or is it like, all right, we've arrived, baby. Let's go roll the ball out here Monday or Sunday in Orlando. We're just going to walk out there and play because LSU, this is personal for them for sure. I mean, you heard Mason Taylor in some offseason interview talk about like, we got to get back what's ours. This didn't go the way it was supposed to last year, so they're going to come out swinging. So I'm leaning LSU right now. You got a feel on this one?
Man, I was leaning LSU, and I now I'm kind of freaking out. I'm not gonna lie. The more I kind of study FSU, I'm like, damn, that's a good football team, man. I've been talking FSU up all off season as like my team in the ACC, and then now not having Mason, I'm just like, oh man, not Mason, and once again, like just hearing all the negativity towards the DBs a little bit for LSU just spooks me a little bit, but I do trust Brian Kelly. Like I said a little bit earlier when we were talking about Notre Dame, like I think Brian Kelly is a premier coach in college football. And now year 2 at LSU with that talent, it's hard for me not to believe that this team is just not going to be focused, fundamentally more sound than they were at the beginning last season and ready to go kick some ass and get some revenge on Florida State as well. So a little bit towards LSU, but man, this is going to be it's crazy, man. Like this game can just almost determine part of the playoff already because
it's playoff
the
mode.
thought of Florida State having to go undefeated the rest of the season, and then obviously same thing with LSU. This is a make or break game for both these teams, man, because that margin of error is so razor thin when you got to play Clemson probably multiple times. You got to play Alabama and the entire SEC West, and then Georgia and SEC championship. Like, this is an important game for both teams. It's going to be fun to watch. Thursday night game, Florida versus Utah. My big worry in this one, because I love Utah, great defense, physical team, is two things. One, you lose Dalton Kincaid, who is your Superman tight end. And I don't believe Cam Rising can play. Like, I've come back from a torn ACL. Like, if you can come back and play at a high level in 7 months, like, man, good for you. But, like, that kid is a hell of a player. If he can play, I don't know how effective he can be, like his full self. And then, first off, I don't even think he can play 7 months coming off the ACL. I don't know. I know surgeries have improved, and these guys are they bounce back like nothing. But that's a lot to ask for a guy who got surgery in January.
And what happens if Florida starts scoring points? Like, I mean, you have a backup quarterback in there for Utah potentially. You got Graham Mertz, who's played like a million some odd games and has got two of the best backs quietly in the country right behind him. Like, let's say Florida gets up, 10-0 in the second quarter, and that defense from Florida is improved, and they do have more depth, and all those things we've heard are true about Austin Armstrong. Like, then Utah's kind of messing around trying to find a way to get points on the board, and then Florida's just holding the ball for longer drives. So it feels like on paper, Utah, this team that's coming off back-to-back Pac-12 titles, and they've got so many guys back, and Kyle Whittingham's this guy. But, like, Aaron, I'm kind of thinking the same way as you. If there is no Cam Rising, that drastically changes the way that I look at Utah and what they have around him, because he is what makes this whole system go with his arm, yes, but also with his legs, which either way, if he plays, probably isn't an asset for them in this game.
No, I think that's the key factor right there. So if Cam was healthy, if there was no surgery, no tear, like I would say, okay, yeah, Utah is the better football team. From top to bottom, Utah is the better football team. But there is just such a massive drop from Cam Rising to what they have behind them, where I'm like, I don't have faith that they could win this game, even at home, even though that they're probably, if you want to compare position by position, I would kind of lean Utah more in a lot of the positions that I would Florida. This is a big game for Graham Mertz, though, man. Like, going on the road, first game in a new uniform, it's going to be hostile as hell, man. It's a hell of an environment there at Utah, and a lot of expectations, honestly, because you said it, like, Florida knows, like, we have a run game. We have two great running backs. Utah knows, hey, this team's going to want to run the football. We go back and watch last year's tape. I know they had Anthony Richardson at quarterback, but this was a run-first offense. Offensive line performed well. The running backs performed well. And obviously Anthony Richardson performed well too. They're going to load the box. They'd be stupid not to. We got home field advantage. The stadium's going to be shaking. We have a quarterback who doesn't perform well against top defenses, and good receivers, maybe not great receivers, good receivers. Like, the ball's going to be in his hand, man. Like, Graham Mertz, you're going to be asked to win that football game. You're going to get a lot of 8-man boxes, and it's going to be one-on-one. You better be accurate as hell, and you better take advantage of it.
And how much has been talked about with him when he was the guy that transferred to Florida, like that feeling around, the Gator fan base was kind of like oh, really? Like, there was all these guys that were, there was at that point in time, Grayson McCall is in the portal and
Yeah.
Devin Leary's in the portal. And I don't know if they had committed at that point in time, but you're kind of thinking as a Florida fan, like Graham Mertz, the guy that wasn't necessarily lining up at Wisconsin, that's our guy. And so I'm super fascinated by what this fresh start could mean for him. Because, he was highly recruited out of high school. We saw him do it at times for Wisconsin. Like, the dude can spin the rock. I wonder if his receivers are going to be able to separate when they do load the box up. Is a Eugene Wilson that true freshman they're excited about? Does he get loose a couple times? Does Ricky Pearsall win one-on-one? And when they give him those open shots, does Graham Mertz take advantage? Because like you said, if that comes out to a wash where Utah just kind of throws the kitchen sink and says, we are going to make you beat us, Graham Mertz, how sweet would that be for him on the road in Salt Lake City against the back-to-back Pac-12 title champs, and to just be able to kind of walk off and say, that's why I'm your guy.
Yeah.
That's why I'm your guy. That'd be
I think
awesome.
they got it, man. I'm leaning towards Florida in this game because of the quarterback situation for Utah. I'll be honest, like and I know there's gonna be fans like, oh, you just don't like Florida because no. I'm trying to talk good here in the sense of like this is still a rebuilding year. Like I have never been through an offseason in my entire life where I feel like we've talked less about Florida than we have this year. And I think that's a good thing. Like let Billy Napier do his thing. Just let him
Vegas has him,
cooking, man. Just let him keep cooking. He'll be fine. Just don't think this team should be a 8-win team. If they somehow find a way to do it, then you better be celebrating, maybe throwing a damn parade. But like, just get through another year. Let him keep building. Florida, you'll be finding out plenty of talent. So that's gonna be a great game on Thursday night. Let's move to the Battle of Carolina, UNC versus USC. Two really good quarterbacks duking it out. Drake May, Spencer Rattler. Any pulse on this one for you of kind of how you feel it going down?
Dude, I love Drake May. Like Drake May, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, obviously. Like, the best quarterback not named Caleb Williams in NFL draft circles. My issue, Drake May doesn't play defense for North Carolina. And South Carolina, they got to bring it a little bit as well in the trenches and be able to do something against the run. But with the way that they ended last year and the things that are being said about Spencer Rattler behind closed doors right now, which is just talking, it doesn't mean anything just yet. There's some confidence for me that if South Carolina gets rolling, I wonder about who Drake May is going to throw the football to. Because at the time I was recording this, nothing with Tez Walker, and Josh Downs did a lot for them last year. So I love Drake May, but when you put the entirety of this game on his back, I look at South Carolina and I see Juice Wells, I see Spencer Rattler, I see a defense that's got some things to prove. So I love Shane Beamer. I'm leaning South Carolina right now on this one, Aaron.
You have literally my notes. My note says Drake May, all the weight of the world on his shoulders. Yeah, because it is, man. Like you don't have, because there's always going to be the comparison of him and Caleb, and you look at the numbers last year, and they're actually eerily similar, which is crazy. And you look at USC right now, and the USC doesn't have a defense. You can say the same about UNC, but at least they have receivers and talent and playmakers at USC. Southern Cal, not South Carolina, as I talk about this one. And Drake doesn't have that this year. And maybe someone emerges. So maybe there's someone that, and I always talk about with quarterbacks and kind of what I talked about earlier with Sam Hartman. Like guys of that caliber make average receivers good. They make good receivers great because guess what? They can put the ball on time in rhythm for a spot to make that guy catch it in stride. And then all of a sudden you give a good receiver ball a foot in front of the numbers where he can go. He's going to make a big explosive play. And then that guy starts to build confidence, and that just kind of builds throughout the season. But this is still week one, though. That confidence needs to be built with this young, inexperienced offensive line, receiving core. And once again, a defense that just frankly is probably not going to be great again this year for UNC. So I'm with you, man. I'm leaning a little bit towards USC. I like their skill. I'm interested to see what that tight end looks like, the 5-star freak athlete, how they get him involved. Yeah. Should be a fun one, though, man. I hope Drake balls out. I do, because I kind of feel bad for the kid because he doesn't have all the talent in the world. I was kind of hoping he'd go to Alabama this offseason.
And he
and
could
go
have.
all out.
He probably could have. I would
He
imagine.
could
Like I'm sure
have.
everybody was blowing him up and saying, "Hey, come play here," and he's like, "Want to be at UNC." So there's some loyalty cred there for sure. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, good for him,
tough.
but I still would have loved to see what Drake would have looked like with a bunch of five-star receivers around him, how good he could have been.
Florida.
That's that game. I think you and I both lean a little bit towards USC.
Yeah.
The one everyone's going to be watching, which we probably would not have been watching if it wasn't for a major coaching move. Colorado versus TCU. Time to see if all the roster moves from Deion Sanders actually works, and they can create any sort of noise against the team. The defending, I guess, number 2 team in the country, losing the Georgia Bulldogs last year. TCU loses the quarterback, their offensive coordinator. They bring in Kendall Briles from Arkansas. Going to be some new faces. I think TCU takes a step back a little bit this year. I mean, TCU is still a good team. Don't get me wrong. Like, and you look at TCU over the past 15 years, like they have been really damn good. So they hit the portal extremely well. They got some good receivers. They got some good running backs. Like it'll be a good team. I just don't think that you can expect them to kind of hit those numbers that they did last year. Man, I hope Colorado kind of wins one of those first 2, though. I just really do, because I don't know how you feel, man, but I'm a fan of what Deion's doing there at Colorado.
At the very least, it is just fascinating, right? Like everybody kind of has an opinion on it, and there's nobody's really in the middle on pro Dion or not so pro Dion. But to say that anybody has a gauge for what he's going to be with just overhauling and a completely new roster, like they're lying to you. Like we have never seen anything like this in
Mhm.
college football because it's never been possible, and now it is with the portal. And Dion says we got to get better. We were 111 last year. Okay, let me bring my Louis luggage and let's get after it here. But yeah, if they do steal one of these early 2, that's gonna pour some fuel on the Coach Prime hype train. However, I cannot get out of my mind Chandler Morris and what he did in relief. I believe it was of Max Duggan in 20. I guess it was 2020, where Baylor came to town, and Baylor's thinking college football playoff, and they're on the march for a Big 12 title, and Chandler Morris was like the reincarnation of Johnny Manziel that day. So he may not be Max Duggan, and Quentin Johnston may not be running around out there, but I
Yeah.
think they're still in really good hands with him at quarterback. And I wonder how long we talk about, transfer guys and all that meshing. Like a lot of pieces at Colorado that are going to have to get working here pretty quick, fast, and in a hurry. So for week 1, I'm leaning TCU there right now, Aaron.
Yeah, I definitely lean TCU too. I'm interested to see Travis Hunter, how much he can play both sides of the ball, because I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on him to be that go-to guy of, hey, you got to lock down the top DB or top receiver on defense, and then you got to flip it over and be our playmaker on offense. And
Mm-hmm.
man, you can do that when you're playing, an HBCU where you're the number 1 player in the conference, and there's a massive gap. Now you're in the Power 5, and the dude you're going against, yeah, you may be better, but that gap is shrunken. Can you go both ways at a high level? Your first game when the adrenaline's running high, you're probably going to be juiced out of your mind in pregame warmups. You're going to be wearing yourself out a little bit early, because there are a lot of expectations for him and Deion and Sherrod. Like, are they ready to, handle the spotlight? But I do want to see, like, how much are you truly going to put the pressure on Travis to go both ways, to be that superstar that we think he could be, where, man, we haven't seen someone play at that kind of level on both sides in quite some time. Just fascinated by Colorado. I'm with you, man. Does this experiment work? Because we've seen it in smaller ways at different universities. Riley did a little bit at USC last year on offense.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Lane Kiffin do it at Ole Miss, where he brings in a lot of guys to the portal and kind of re-identifies what the team looks like. But like, there's little like parts of the team, not the entire football team, essentially. Like, this is, like you said, brand new territory. Could be the wave of the new future for teams that are 1-11 the previous year. Last game, which I think is actually gonna be pretty damn good. Battle in the ACC, Clemson versus Duke. I get crushed by Clemson fans, just crushed, because I am not sold on Clemson this year, to be honest. I'm not sold on Clemson. I'm not sold on Alabama, and somehow everyone in College Game Day thinks that Alabama's going to win national championship. So I don't know. They get
There you
paid a
go.
lot more money than I do, so maybe they know some stuff that I don't. But these are 2 teams of mine, like 2 megas that I'm just can't buy in for 2 reasons, JD. Quarterback and receivers. And I think in today's game, you need that to win a championship. And I think both have questions at both key positions on offense.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point with Cade Klubnik, he's kind of a name that, based on what he did in the ACC title game and what it was at a high school, like there's a lot of excitement around for good reason. But I think, to your point, we need to maybe dial back the Cade Klubnik buzz, and not in a negative way. It's just like, hey, we
Yeah.
have two sample sizes on him. We have the
Yeah.
ACC title game, where again, North Carolina, I don't think they believe in defense. And
No.
also in the Orange Bowl, he had a lot on his plate, and that's a big spot, but he wasn't necessarily like lighting it up in that game. And so I think if he goes out and looks pedestrian and they beat Duke by 7 points, like it's okay. Like let's let the kid kind of get his
Yeah.
sea legs a little bit and figure it out in a brand new offense. Enormously talented, but the buzz around him, I think, is maybe just a little bit unfair. And to your point, the receiver room, I'm very curious how Garrett Riley schemes some guys open for them, because they didn't have that guy that was just,
Mm-mm.
Mike Williams or a Sammy Watkins, or like
Yep.
that alpha wide receiver that we've seen Clemson have in the past. Adam Randall's a guy that I know they're excited to get back. He's been clocked like 4'4". He's like 6 foot. I believe he's 6'2", 6'3", 220. So like he's rocked up. So if he can get back to what they hope he can be, he could be a guy for them to go with Antonio Williams. But overall, that tempo, the motions, kind of that. I mean, really what they did at TCU last year with creating explosives. I'm curious if that doesn't maybe make up for some of the things they don't have or haven't seen yet across that receiver room.
Well, I think it's less excitement. I think there is an excitement for Klubnik heading into year two. Since like, okay, he got all the reps. There wasn't, he wasn't sitting behind DJU kind of waiting his turn. So, and there should be that natural progression from year one to year two. I think it's more of everyone just the narrative of, if Riley runs your offense and one of them, they're going to be great and the quarterback's going to put up stupid numbers. So I mean, it is an impressive track number, and you kind of sit back and say like, damn, when is the last time that he did have a quarterback that didn't put up stupid numbers? And they have a lot of talent at a lot of positions. I just still need to see it, because what I saw from Cade last year was just a young quarterback. I'm not saying he's good or bad. I'm just saying that he was green.
Yeah.
And I need to see him take that next step before I crown him as a all ACC quarterback. I need the receivers to take massive strides in that right direction. I mean, you literally had an offense last year that relied on Will Shipley running over 4 or 5 guys every single play for that offense to move up and down the field. So, they'll be great on defense. And I do think the offense will be better. Will it be good enough to win an ACC championship? I think it should be. I mean, it should be right there with Florida State. Like, they're going to be one of the 2 favorite teams. Is it good enough to win the national championship? I don't think so. I just don't think so. But they're going to have a good test, man. Duke's a good football team. They returned their quarterback. Mike Elko's a hell of a defensive mind. You saw those numbers from 2 years ago, giving up like 39 points per game, or 3 years. 2 years ago was 38. Then all of a sudden last year was 22 points per game. Like, that's a hell of a jump when it comes to defensive production. They lose their top 2 tacklers, but return everyone else. Like, this is a team where, yeah, you're more talented than them, but they got a great coach. They're playing with a lot of confidence after what happened last year. And once again, I think possibly the better of the 2 quarterbacks heading into this game. Could they make it a single score game, you think?
100%. 100%. I mean, I think if you're Dabo Swinney, like, you're going into this game, and if you win the game by 1 point, like, everybody's going to say, wow, Clemson really struggled on the road against Duke. What are they going to be? And it's like, man, new quarterback, new offense. If you win by 1, great. You win by 41, awesome. But like, you get out of Duke, you get out of Durham, North Carolina with the win any way you get it, like, that is a good thing. I don't think there's such thing as a bad win here for Clemson. I mean, it's on a Monday, it's on the road. And like you mentioned, like Riley Leonard, we talk about, Drake May and Caleb Williams. Riley Leonard right now, at least, is that name that gets mentioned right after both those cats. So if he decides to just show up and like just kind of be that guy that day, what happens in that game? So I'm curious to watch that one. But no, it is not going to be a thing where Clemson, I don't think, runs away and wins by 20 or 30. If they do, maybe they pull away late. But I think it's a thing where this is going to be a dogfight. And just a horrible spot if you're Clemson. Like, it's a weekday game. Weekday games are always weird. You're on the road. It's not one of those neutral site Monday games. So I'm fired up for this one. This is going to be a good one.
I think for people on the outside, I think for those who aren't educated of what Duke did last year and what they're returning, think it's kind of like a no-win situation for Clemson, essentially, because
Yeah.
if you do win close, the national perspective is like, oh my God, Clemson won a close game to Duke. And if you blow them out, people are going to be like, yeah, we expected that. So for you and I who do know how good Duke is, I do think if Clemson does put it on them a little bit, and if they produce on offense and can create some explosive plays, I start to feel better about that week 4 matchup where they do host FSU there in Death Valley of like, okay, man, that's gonna be a hell of a ball game. So now I'm just happy football's here. Week 0, the appetizer. I got my belly nice and primed, a little soup, a little Caesar salad. And the next week we start to get into some of those main courses with I think some great ball games, like you and I said. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 games that are already going to shape what the playoff is going to look like in about 4 months, which is crazy. We're already getting that to start the season off. JD, man, I appreciate you. Once again, love everything you guys do at On 3. Love what you do with them. Make sure you go follow him on all of his social medias. He does a great job. And I'm sure you're going to kick some ass this fall as well. And once again, man, thanks for jumping on with me on a late Saturday night after week 0.
Heck yeah, man. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Football's back. Let's have a great year, baby. Appreciate you having me on.